The Gulf South Conference is the premier football conference of Division II. It's the home of 11 football national championships and 5 Harlan Hill Trophy winners. Now, bringing you in-depth coverage and pinpoint analysis every week with the GSC Football Weekly podcast, here are your hosts, Matt Selesky and Mike Ezekiel.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Gulf South Conference Football Weekly podcast. I am Matt Selesky, alongside me, Mike Ezekiel, and our producer, Will Corey, in the house with us as always. Great to be back with you today as we are coming up on the final week of the regular season. So we'll be talking about some of the teams for the last time, or previewing their games for the last time. And we got a handful of teams that look like they are poised for a great playoff run. Mike, good afternoon, buddy. How are you?
Matt, I'm excellent. How are you doing, man?
Doing good, man. You know, it's kind of a whirlwind weekend for me. I spent the weekend in Baton Rouge.
That's right.
Watching Alabama and LSU. Sounds like I missed out on some great Gulf South Conference football action, though.
Ooh, you sure did. I was at, of course, Brawley Stadium. What a game that was. UNA just throttling West Florida. I don't know if anybody expected it to be 51-3. Saw some school records broken in the process. UNA scored 34 points in the first quarter. How impressive. Wow.
I think the 51 for UNA didn't surprise me. The only 3 by West Florida did.
Yes.
But, folks, if you're just kind of catching this for the first time, I do host a local sports radio show here in the Florence Muscle Shoals area, and the UNA head football coach Bobby Wallace joins me every week. And on the show, he said this defense is the best defense he's ever coached. And you're talking about a guy that coached 9 years at Temple in Division I, a guy that was an assistant at Auburn for a handful of years as well. And he said this is one of the best defenses he's ever seen before. So maybe he wasn't surprised, but when you look at West Florida and the amount of points they've been able to put up all season, hard to believe you could keep that team to only 3.
Oh, absolutely, and especially when you have a Harlan Hill candidate at quarterback like Caleb Nobles. And wow, I mean,
is he a Harlan Hill candidate?
He's on the verge of it. I don't think they've officially selected who would be the Harlan Hill candidate yet. I think they do that towards the end of the year, but at which we're getting close to the end of the year. But it wasn't an official thing, but a lot of people suspected his stats would make him one of those candidates. And boy, UNA just I think they held him to 171 passing yards. So that was a big day for UNA to do what they did.
Mike, they held him to 53 passing yards.
Oh, I was thinking about Tucker. My bad. So, yeah, 53 yards. Yikes. That's, good job by the UNA defense. The secondary was great. The pass rush was great. And they only rushed 3 linemen half the time. So, dropping 8 back really helped UNA.
No doubt about it, Mike. Well, we're going to take a look at – we might as well stay with that game since we're already kind of there anyway.
Yeah, got a lot more good ones to look at, but I think we got a good jump on UNA right now.
Yeah, Mississippi College shorter. We'll take a look at that one. One team finally off the conference schneid there. West Alabama and Valdosta, that was a good one. Florida Tech pretty much put West Georgia's season on the ice with a big win there. So we'll get to all those. But right now, let's go ahead and stay with West Florida and UNA. And one thing every week I look up, Mike, and I see how efficient Jacob Tucker has been playing. 8 of 13, $176 a touchdown, no picks. And it seems like week in and week out for Jacob is just – is the ability not to turn the football over, to complete a solid percentage of the passes, to be able to hit the big play. It's just really the type of play you need at quarterback to make a deep run. And I'll say again, we can go back and think back to our first podcast, Mike, where we picked the teams in the order we thought they would finish in, and I had UNA fourth. I thought this was a year they take a step back from where they've been. But, Mike, they didn't just not take a step back. They may have taken 1 or 2 forward. They really are playing at a high level. The running game's starting to come along. I do wonder when some of those really, really good defenses you get to in the postseason, they could continue to run the football with the running backs. But Ray Beasley, 7 for 84. Cox, 14 for 78. And Jacob Tucker always chipping in there, 7 for 52. So a lot of balance on offense, doing what they want, and really creating a lot of mismatches for the other team. And as I've already mentioned, and as Coach Wallace said, the defense has just been playing lights out, very physical, getting to the football, creating turnovers, and man, 51-3. They've got 1 game left. They're currently ranked number 1 in Super Region 2, and things are looking pretty good for the Lions.
Absolutely are. And Matt, I being a guy that loves Gulf South Conference football, I wish it was more convenient for us to talk to every coach, but I do get to sit down with Coach Wallace as well. Sat down with him today and talked about, kind of where we are in the region, and talked about play last week and looking ahead to Mississippi College. But, he talked about Jacob Tucker. He only played 27 plays in that game. And Coach Wallace said we had more than that in the first quarter. So he said Jacob really didn't play a whole quarter. And, when he said that, I was like, you know what? You're right. Hawkins played most of the game. But like you said, 8 of 13, 176 yards. I think the week before, Coach Wallace said he took him out in the third quarter, and he was near a school record as far as total yards passing, I believe. He said he was 9 yards away, and if he would have been aware of that, he would have left him in to get the 10. So
passing yards.
I think
how
so.
many yards did he have?
He was, man, I don't even.
I remember Luke Wingo had 5'11" against Valdosta.
He was in the 400s, I think. I think he was really close. And I don't know if it was passing or if it was total because he does. Yeah, because he does run the ball a lot. So
maybe total because I remember Luke Wingo had 5'11"
against Valdosta that game.
And they lost to the playoffs that year too.
But he was lights out in that game.
Yeah, I don't.
But so it wouldn't be pass. I think it was total. But he said he was 9 yards away, and he kind of felt bad he took him out. But I wasn't even aware of that, and some of those things. But
we're gonna have to defer to our main man Will Corey, our producer behind the scenes over there. I see him on the phone, man. We're gonna get.
I'm just kind of talking from
get
here.
Some stats.
And here is not always the right way to go.
Which game was it? Delta State, UNA Delta. But Mike, here's the thing, and I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna talk about that big red elephant in the room, and that's no, it's not really in the room.
It's not on your head either. Or
no,
not on your whole attire.
I got the purple and gold on today, but it's not UNA's purple and gold. But Mike, it's UNA has been a team that has had a lot of success in the regular season, and they have fallen short of expectations in the postseason quite a bit. Can this team finally get over that hump? And I don't think there's a yes or no answer. I mean, you could say yes, I could say yes, I could say no, you could say no. There's no way to know that until they play because we've seen this team get in the playoffs many times before with really, really high expectations and unable to meet those expectations. They've been an incredible regular season team, and as often as they make the playoffs or as good as they are, they have not matched the postseason with the way they played in the regular season. And so you wonder if this is the year they can finally break through. I know, yes, they have 3 national championships from the mid-'90s when they went back to back to back, but I think since 2003, they missed the playoffs twice in 14 years now. And I don't think I think they have one semifinal appearance, two semifinal appearances in there, and that was 03 and 05. And I think since then, they usually first, second round, sometimes third round exit. Is this the team that can finally make the run deep enough to change that? And I don't have that answer. I hope that answer is yes, but I just don't know right now.
And I think one point to make when you talk about that, it's kind of hard to compare previous years. That's one thing. This is a completely different team than we've ever seen. Jacob Tucker's the leader. You have a whole different defense than we've ever seen, a whole new receiving core, a lot of different running backs. So this is a different team. But one thing that Coach Wallace said to me today that really stood out, and I think he's right, and this is his assessment, not mine, but he went back to the 93 and 95 championship teams, and he said 1993 had an excellent offense, one of the best offenses in the nation, and we had a great defense. But, the defense was just pretty good. It was mostly an offensive team. 95, that's a excellent defensive team and a pretty good offense. He said this team in 2016 so far has been the most complete team he's seen, offensively, defensively, and special teams-wise. And he read off some stats to me. Some of the stats I already knew, but some of them I did not. But first in scoring offense in the conference, first in scoring defense in the conference, I think first in least amount of points given up. And he read off some special team stats too. I think kick return yards or something like that. But I think the biggest one that stood out was number 12 in the nation in turnover margin. And that's in the right direction. So everything about this UNA team has just blown me away this season. I think I've been surprised. I think you've been surprised. I think all of us have really been surprised at how good this team is. Can they translate that into the playoffs? Like you said, I don't know. We don't have that answer, but it's going to be fun to see. Do they have the potential? Absolutely.
I think they've always had the potential. Can they turn it into? And you made a good point. This is a different team, and I agree with that. But I think when you study the history of a team for a long time, even though there's different players oftentimes, you look at the 05 Northwest Missouri team and 06 and 07. Every year you say it's a different team. It's a different team. They keep losing. Now they finally did break through in 09, but there was different movement. There was moving pieces on each team that were different. Wasn't the same quarterback every year. Wasn't the same this, same that. And so you start to see the trend of a team, and so you can't help but to ask that question about a certain team, even if there are different pieces on that team. But certainly I think that they're doing the things necessary. What you've alluded to, the balance in what they do could really be key. Because I think a couple of years ago when we were talking about Luke Wingo and the 500-plus yards passing, that defense just could not stop the run.
Yeah.
They could not stop the run, and it showed up in the playoffs. So, I don't know if there's one weakness that can be exploited, and this defense has just gotten better and better and better. So, we will see. But, man, it's an exciting time for UNA. For West Florida, it wasn't the best game they played of the year, but a lot of that probably had to do with who they were playing in UNA. But West Florida, I mean, still a great year when you think about what they've been able to do.
Oh, yeah.
In year number one, I think their ceiling's just going to be really high in the years to come. But apologies, I did a lot of screaming in Baton Rouge this weekend.
Oh, we know you did.
But they ran 33 runs, 26 passes. Mike, you're talking about right at almost 60 plays, and they managed about 170 yards. So a lot of credit to UNA's defense. West Florida will have one more game against West Georgia next week and see if they can't finish that off, because that's kind of an intriguing game. You have one team in West Georgia that's saying our season was not nearly as good as we thought it would be. You have a team in West Florida that says, hey, we had a pretty good year, and we can finish this thing off the right way. So that could be a very intriguing game for them.
Yeah, and, just to flip the script, talking about West Florida, this is a team that really exceeded expectations. For a first-year team, this program has done so much to prove that, hey, we can compete in the Gulf South Conference and even more. So, have a chance to end the year. Right now, I think they're sitting at 5-4, 5-5, something like that. So they have a chance to maybe get that 5th or 6th win and have a either a 500 season or maybe a little more than that. So congrats to West Florida on doing what they've done this year. Offensively, this team has been strong all year. It was a little tough against UNA. Of course, that's running into a buzzsaw, so to speak. But this West Florida team's really exceeded expectations, and I like their future.
Mississippi College and Shorter. Mike, this was the game to get off the schneid here, to get off the conference. Well, Mississippi College won a game outside of the conference, but this was to get off the conference schneid. And good job by Mississippi College. They get a nice win here. Sharon Wright, guy you're a big fan of, Mike, had a solid football game. Throwing the ball, didn't have a pick there, but had some nice rushing yards. And really, what I saw in this game, Mike, is they just kind of controlled the clock and played good defense. I mean, only 118 yards passing, 211 on the ground. So, you're talking 329 yards. My math is right. That's nothing just incredibly incredible there. But at the same time, they held Shorter to 182 yards, 105 through the air, and 77 on the ground. So just kind of they grinded out a pretty easy, dominant shutout win. And for Mississippi College, they've just kind of been right there on the hump all season, and they finally got over that hump. For Shorter, new coach, rebuilding, it's probably been a tough season for them because in years past they haven't won a lot of games, but they've been competitive. This year, just have not been very competitive.
Yeah, like we've been saying all year, Shorter has been from here, then the next year here, then the next year here, and it seems like they're just continuing to improve. They finally just kind of go back down, take about 3 steps back, and they're back to where they were. So it's been a rough year for Shorter. 0-10 on the year, 0-7. They have one more game to play against Valdosta. It's not looking good for them. So definitely a rebuilding year for Shorter coming up next year as well, I think. So looking at Mississippi College, though, I mean, first conference win since 1995. They rejoined the conference in 2014. So, that was their first win since rejoining in 2014. They were 0-20 before that. So that's a big win for Mississippi College, not just to get off the schneid this year, but off a 3-year schneid that they've been on. And you talked about Sharon Wright. He had a good game. Very athletic quarterback. Could do a couple of things there. He was efficient. But Marcel Newson, he is a guy to definitely watch. He anytime he touches the ball, he's explosive. He can score from anywhere, whether it be special teams, at wide receiver. They just want to get him on the field and find a way to get him in the end zone and just find some open space because he's scary. I think he's 4th in the nation in all-purpose yards. So that's one thing Mississippi College really has going for them. Big win for the Choctaws.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Mike. And Shorter's going to finish their season up with Valdosta State and Mississippi College. Going to host UNA on senior day, so both teams going to have a tough road to hoe next week. But Shorter's, that was their senior day, 750 in attendance. Hate to see the number that small, but people like to see teams that win, and I don't think it's a thing about being rude or anything like that. Obviously, you're going to have some programs that are going to go out and support all the time, but it's a lot more fun to go watch a team that's winning, not just winning, but has a chance to win. And the way Shorter's played this year. Most outings, they just have not been competitive, and after a while, it's just like, tough to watch. But I'm glad they're starting to add different things to their offense. You give this new coach a full season to recruit, and we'll see where they're at next year. But they have one game left against Valdosta. Like I said, we'll get to our picks later in the show, Mike. But you want to try to finish this thing off the right way, go out with a competitive effort, and Flip side for Mississippi College, neither team's going to see the postseason, but boy, they would love to play a little bit of a spoiler for UNA's number one spot in the region, I think.
And the main thing is that they could. I mean, you cannot overlook that game. I think UNA realizes how important that game is, knowing that if they win, they get that number one seed, get to stay healthy, and they get to have that bye week and host throughout the quarterfinals. So if they can make it that far. So, that's a big game for them. And Mississippi College would love to play spoiler, and they absolutely could. Anytime their offense is great. I mean, offensively, they're good. Defensively hasn't been as good, but they're improving. That's a game that could be a scare for the Lions if they aren't ready to play. But on the other side, talking about shorter, I agree with you, Matt. I like what they're doing as far as trying to do some new things. I mean, the season's pretty much already over at this point. Valdosta next week. Let's see what you do there. But trying to do some new things, trying to figure out what to do. Coach Aaron Kelton, I think he's going to do a good job throughout the years once he starts bringing in the talent he needs to bring in.
Valdosta State, West Alabama. Mike, I think we both picked West Alabama at home here. And Valdosta State gets the big win, 37-22. And one thing that's tough there is it knocked West Alabama to the 9th spot in the region rankings, and Valdosta up to number 3. So now West Alabama, their final game against Malone University, I don't even know if they are a Division II school. Are they NAI or Division II?
I don't think they're Division II.
Yeah, I've never heard of them before. Will.
Will's our research guy.
He's on top of it.
See, I had that earlier, but I'm just going to double check anyway.
It was a big game that went in favor of Valdosta State. And I tell you, you look at this, and no rolling rivers this week. Adam Robles led the way, 34-56, 353 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have 1 lone pick. His long was only 27 yards, so they were nickel and diming their way down the field with a lot of consistency. Here, the running game was a little pedestrian, 39 for 99s, 2.5 a pop. But they still tried to run it. They still tried to keep the balance. I mean, that's a lot of run plays. At the end of the day, that's a lot of plays, Mike. You're talking about nearly 100 plays. 96 plays they ran. The flip side of that, 68 plays were ran by West Alabama. So 97-68 is a heck of an advantage for Valdosta State. West Alabama moved the ball. They ran it well. Lee and Thomas both 101 yards rushing. They as a team, they were 31 for 226. Grammer did throw for 237, but he didn't have a touchdown pass. He had 2 picks. Turnovers hurt him there, 97-68. That many, you're talking 30 more plays or 29 more plays for the Blazers. And when you're able to do that, that means you're controlling it. Because I always I don't just look at total yards passing or running. I look at, how'd you get them? How effective and efficient were you? 34-56, that's, I'm just off the top of my head, that's almost 60% completion percentage there. Only the 1 interception, 3 touchdowns, and 27 was the longest pass play. So you could tell it wasn't 2 80-yard bombs that kind of exploded the numbers. You're talking about just nickeling and diming. I watched Valdosta play when they were here at UNA. A lot of screen passes, getting the ball out quick, and able to get those first downs and keep a rhythm to the offense. It looked like Valdosta was able to dictate their style of play because when you look at the total yards were 455 to about 460, kind of 458. So, the total yards are right beside each other. I mean, you're talking a couple yards apart. But it looks like Valdosta could dictate the game, their style of play, less turnovers, and that was probably a game that said, you win, you're in, you lose, you're out. West Alabama could get in. They're going to need some help, but now they fall back to number 9. They don't have a strong game to finish the season, and they're number 9 now. That game really hurt them trying to get into the postseason. For Valdosta State, finishing at home against Shorter, they've got to like where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about Valdosta State, jumping all the way back to number 3 now in the regional rankings. But in this game, I think the biggest difference is turnovers. And West Alabama had 5. That's what really killed them. The 3 fumbles, the 2 interceptions. West Alabama just couldn't capitalize on their drives, couldn't find the end zone at points. So, and they had a lot of opportunities to win that game. And I think that's what made it so tough. Valdosta, on the other hand, just showed that they do deserve to be in the playoffs. They've had kind of a roller coaster year at times. But for the most part, they've been winning a lot of games and have been proving that week in and week out that they do deserve to be in that top 7. Looking forward to seeing how they end the year. They are going to play Shorter. And if they win that game, I expect them to be right there at number 3. Newberry's got a game against Wingate. Newberry's, of course, at number 2. Wingate's at number 8. So if Newberry wins that game, I imagine they'll stay at number 2, just that being a strong game for them. Valdosta not exactly having that strong game to end the season. So, but if that game is a loss for Newberry, Valdosta could easily move in number 2, and they deserve to be there. They're a good team.
No doubt about it, Mike. West Alabama, I think, is a dangerous team if they can get in the playoffs.
Yes.
We'll see if they can't get in. We're going to move on here. In Florida Tech and West Georgia, Mike, Florida Tech upset West Georgia last year, their only loss, and West Georgia at home maybe want some revenge. But I had the feeling going into last week that it was going to be Florida Tech's game to lose. West Georgia just have not seemed to since that UNA game, it's just kind of went the other way for them. They've just not had the rhythm they've needed throughout the year. They still got a lot of really good players, but have just not found the rhythm that they would hope to have. And because of that, turnovers, mistakes, they've kind of went with Willie Candler, the younger quarterback, but 12 of 22, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 2 crucial picks there, obviously. 17 carries, 5 yards. I'm sure there's some sacks involved in that stat line. Florida Tech. I always get West Florida and Florida Tech confused for some reason. Only 2 Florida schools in the conference.
They're both there.
I don't get them confused because I know who the Argos and who the Panthers are, but when I say their names, it always comes out a little funny.
Right.
But Florida Tech, they didn't exactly dominate offensively, which nobody's dominated West Georgia's defense all year, but 124 yards passing. Did throw a pick, though, but Cato. Some balance in the running game with Sand and Haynes and Cato getting involved there as well. A little over 200 yards. Controlled, they really controlled the tempo a bit. And West Georgia mistakes of getting their Achilles heel all season. And once again, they got the best of them against Florida Tech. The score was 31-21 going into the fourth quarter. But West Florida Tech took over the fourth quarter at 45-21. So you look at the final, and it looked like it was a little lopsided there. But West Georgia now 10th in the conference. I don't see a win over West Florida getting them all the way up to 7th. So it seems like their playoff hopes ended last week. And for a team that spent the last 2 years in the semifinals of the playoffs, and a team that really was on the brink of kind of breaking through and possibly winning a national championship, to not see the postseason, got to be a disappointing season for the Wolves. And for Florida Tech, the win put them at the number 5 spot, I believe, the 4 or 5 spot. I have to look at it again in the region rankings, Mike. But with Florida Tech and UNA having a game canceled earlier in the season, if Florida Tech when the region rankings in and they're number 4 or 5, and UNA does hold on to number 1, if Florida Tech wins their first game, they would then play UNA. So we would ultimately get that game, and I think we all kind of want that game as GSC fans, but also just Division II fans, because I think we both feel that that's one of those games that would be very competitive and could go either way.
Matt, there's no doubt about that. I mean, we're all looking forward to that game. If that actually does come into fruition, we'll see about that as this next week goes on. But I think Florida Tech just proved how good they are offensively, because we talked about how good West Georgia's defense has been throughout the year. And now at this point, it looks like they're starting to fall apart a little bit, and now Florida Tech really taking advantage. Cato had a decent game, and, I think, talking about Florida Tech, just offensively, they've been so good. They forced 4 turnovers. That really helped them in this game. Just to confirm, they are number 5 right now. Number 4 is UNC Pembroke, and Tuskegee fell to 6, which kind of surprised me a little bit, because Tuskegee was actually at number 3, and they dropped to number 6, and I think a lot of that was just part of the reason they're not going to make the conference championship, and now they're going to fall below the 10 games that they need. And they didn't get their waiver accepted, so now they're trying to scramble to schedule a game against Virginia State. I think that's who they scheduled, but a lot of craziness going on there, and that's part of why they dropped. So we'll see if they even make the playoffs. But going back to your point, Florida Tech at number 5, if they do win that game in the first round and they do end up playing UNA, what a matchup that's going to be. But, talking about West Georgia on the other side, I like the future they have, with Willie Candler. I don't think he's ready yet, but I think he's proven that he's showing some bright spots here, and maybe in the future could lead West Florida to some wins and maybe back to the semifinals eventually. I don't see it next year or this year, but it's been a little bit of a surprise for West Georgia, but tough game for them to lose here to Florida Tech.
Dylan Donahue, a guy we've called his name a lot this season, Mike. He did have 10 tackles, 2 for loss, and a half a sack in the game. So still dominating up front, still doing his part to try to help the team win. And one thing I'm interested in this final week, look at a guy like Will Gardner, who literally, Mike, to start last season, the 2015 year, he was rotating with Lamar Jackson. And the year before that, he started 9 of 12 games. So you got a quarterback that started 9 of 12 games for Louisville. Last year, he opens the season in the rotation with Lamar Jackson, who is likely to win the Heisman Trophy in Division I. And he transfers down to Division II to West Georgia, wanting to win a national championship, coming to a kind of a ready-made team. Had a really tough season. I watched him play against UNA, and he had some wonderful throws, but he also had some bad throws. And then you look at him, and you think this is his final game. I don't know if there's going to be an opportunity for Will Gardner to play past college. And with them playing West Florida this week, I wonder if they're going to let Will Gardner play any, or if they're going to play the young kid Candler. And I'm not Coach Hall, and I'm not in that locker room, and I would have no true understanding of who should play. So I'm not saying I think Will Gardner should play, but I hope he does play, because as a senior and from a guy that a couple years ago was starting at Louisville to transferring out because you got beat out by an exceptional talent like Lamar Jackson. Louisville's a team that could very well make their way into the Final Four playoffs of Division I. Yeah. And to kind of look up and see that, and then you kind of got played yourself out of the position in a Division II school that had national championship aspirations, and you're kind of sitting on the bench. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow, and my heart goes out to that young man. So I hope he does play Saturday. That's not to be confused with I think he should play, because I'm not in that locker room, and I'm not qualified to make those decisions. But I would love to see Will Gardner on the field one more time before he ends his college career.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's something he would want too. And you got to wonder if that's going to motivate him in practice this week as they go throughout this last week. And I think we can both agree this will probably be their last week of football. It's going to be really tough, slim to none chance of making the playoffs at this point. So you just got to wonder what West Georgia is going to decide to do. But really want to get that morale win against West Florida to end the year in Pensacola. West Florida, on the other hand, though, in that game, they're going to want to try to win as well. Nobles is a graduate student as well. I think both of those guys are actually graduate students. I don't think they're seniors. I think both are graduate students. So if Will Gardner does start, then that would be something interesting.
Well, but still a senior on the field.
Yeah, senior on the field, graduate student. Yeah.
So I'm only thinking about in terms of where they're at on the field.
Regardless. Yeah, last year, regardless, for both of those guys. We'll see if they go with Candler.
I don't know if he's taking underwater basket weaving or, if he's studying. I'm not sure what the guy's studying on his,
I just see the roster.
I just look at the little symbol beside his name.
Yeah.
Oh, SR. Senior.
SR or
Gotcha.
GR. Yeah, same thing. But, it could be a fun game. Watching those two teams, we'll see if he starts. That's going to be something I keep my eye on. I'm also going to keep my eye on the defense and see how they end the year because, West Florida's offense, I wonder if they're going to turn it around. But West Georgia's defense, this could be a good way to end the year for them to step up and shut them down.
Yeah, West Florida wanting to end a really nice start to their Gulf South Conference history. Or their Gulf South Conference time. You want to see them get this thing off to the right start. West Georgia try to salvage a season that didn't go as well as you would like. And so we'll see. But, Mike, it kind of gets to that point where we need to make those picks.
And we're there.
So in the first game at noon is West Georgia, West Florida. So
how about that?
We'll just transition right on over. And Mike, this is going to be an interesting game. To me, this is the hardest game on the docket to pick this week. When I think about talent, I think West Georgia can outman West Florida. When I think about West Florida and I think about where they're at as a team, they had a good season, come home, finish this thing off right. I think about West Georgia, their mind could be, I'm not saying it is, could be, man, this season did not go anywhere in any direction how we thought it would. How do we get motivated to play our final game? Senior day was last Saturday. I looked at the attendance; it was just over 5,000. I think they usually get a few more thousand than that when they've been playing well. And so maybe their energy won't be there. This is a hard game for me to pick because I do think West Georgia is still the better team from a talent standpoint. West Georgia may be the best team in the conference from a sheer talent standpoint, but there's a lot of other things that make a football team great besides just physical talent. And so it's just tough, but my gut tells me to go with the Argos to finish this thing off at home. They're going to kind of signify what's been a good season for what the expectations were. And I think West Georgia is going to kind of finish the season on that note that the whole season's been on, just not a very good one.
So you're going with West Florida. I thought about it this whole week. I was like, I might go with West Florida in that game. I would probably favor them, but I go back to last week and just the way they played, that 51-3 loss is going to stand out to me, and they got to carry that with them into next week. Hopefully they can put it behind them for their sake, but just with that in mind, I think I got to go with West Georgia. I think West Georgia is going to want to end the year strong on the road, going into Pensacola. I think this could be where they end on a decent note, even though the season's been pretty much a sour note for the whole year. But I think they could go in and win. So for the steak dinner to tie it up, I'm going to go with West Georgia.
Yeah, and we're going to go all the way through the playoffs, right? Or
That's right. Yeah. So I'm trying to tie it back up here.
If we tie here, we're just going to go out to dinner and both pay for it.
No. We're going through the playoffs. So
either way, Will's going to be. Will hasn't made the picks, but Will's been our great producer.
Oh,
so Will's dinner is going to be thrown in there.
Yes, and I think we need to decide now: are we just doing Gulf South Conference games in the playoffs, or are we going to do bracketology? Because I would be in for bracketology. I think the wheels are spinning there.
Yeah, well, I'd probably gonna be a little unqualified there, but what the heck? We'll pick them off. When the playoffs start, we'll pick them off.
All right,
we'll pick them off.
Sounds good.
All right, Malone University at West Alabama. West Al will dominate this game. They'll finish this thing off the right way. I don't know if it will be enough to get them back into the playoffs. They are in the number 9 spot in the rankings. The top 7 make the playoffs. From each region, there's 4 regions, so that's 28 total teams out of 182 that do make it. Unfortunately, I don't think West Alabama is going to be able to make it in that top 7. I hate it for them because I think they've got a really good football team, and I think they can be a very dangerous opponent for a lot of teams if they get in there. But I don't think they're going to be able to get in there. But they will win this week. They'll get a big blowout win.
Actually, I think what it's going to depend on, since they're actually at number 9, Wingate, if they lose, they're going to fall probably. That's what I'm thinking here. Newberry will stay at number 2. If Newberry loses, I think they're still in the playoffs and Wingate's in there too, and that's going to hurt West Al. What I'm thinking, if West Al wins, though, and Tuskegee doesn't get that playoff grant that they've been looking for and they can't make the playoffs, does that mean another SEAC team gets in if they win the championship? I don't know. Probably not, in my estimation, which could open up a door for West Alabama. So there is a lot to play for this week, regardless of hypotheticals. But I do like them to win this one. I'm going to say big, 45-7.
Delta State at Florida Tech. Interesting game. Couple good offenses. But the difference is one team plays defense, the other one hasn't played a whole lot. Florida Tech, they're the team that plays on both sides of the ball. Delta State, this year they've seemed to play on one side of it. I'll take the team that plays on both sides of the ball. Give me the Panthers.
Yeah, I agree with you. 49-21, Florida Tech. Same assessment there. I think the defense will step up, force some Delta State turnovers, and get the win.
UNA at Mississippi College. Mississippi College, they're coming out their first win in conference. They've been close. They could come out and give some problems to UNA. But I'm not picking against this UNA team, not for a long time, not the way they've been playing. UNA just too good, too focused right now. I got to sit down with Jacob Tucker on my morning show recently, the starting quarterback for UNA, the senior who's really waited his time. And he has got a focus about him. He's a leader. This whole team does. And I think this team could have a special run in them. They'll finish the season off the right way. They'll hold them to that number 1 spot. They'll take care of Mississippi College.
And obviously, I'm not picking this game in case you don't watch the show or this is your first time. I am the sideline reporter for UNA football, so I'll be covering that game and don't want to make a pick on that. But the key to victory for me is I look at this Mississippi College team. I look at a guy like Newsom. I look at a guy like Sharon Wright, who is going to start that game probably. So anytime those guys touch the ball, it's going to be an explosion. So I think for North Alabama, the key is to get ahead and get ahead early and don't make it close, because if that game is close, kind of like Valdosta State, that game was close, and Mississippi College, got that punt return and took a little bit of momentum before Valdosta came back and won. So, if that game is close, that could be a scary moment for the Lions. But, just getting ahead early like they have all year long, that's going to be a big key.
Shorter at Valdosta State, the final game of the day, 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 Central kick. And Shorter, I know they want to go on the road and try to find a way to finish the season off and maybe find a way into the win column. But Valdosta now number 3 in the region rankings. They need this win to maintain their spot, which would give them a home game in the first round. And I just don't think Shorter's a team that can challenge them. I think they'll come out with some fight. I think their coach has done a nice job of trying to implement new things, even though they haven't been very competitive as far as the scoreboard's been concerned. But Valdosta is a good team. They're really finding their rhythm offensively. Or I think they found it, but it's just gotten better and better. Big road win over West Alabama. they'll come back home on senior day. They'll finish it off with a dominating win and keep their place at number 3, if not higher, there in the region standings.
Yeah, they're going to be rooting hard for Wingate. I know that next week. So looking at Valdosta State, though, I think Florida Tech may have an argument, but I think behind UNA could have the most complete team in the conference. Valdosta State just looks good on both sides of the ball. The Black Swarm, as they call it, I think they're going to step up, shut out Shorter, get a big win. I'm going to say 31-zip.
I've got to ask you, though, Mike, with Wingate at number 2, and they're in the SAC conference, right?
Wingate number 8. Newberry 2.
Newberry 2.
Got it.
And they're in the SAC conference, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying Valdosta State's hoping a team from the SAC drops.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. And they are in the SAC. They are in the SAC.
There you go.
Yeah,
we
inside jokes for fun.
We don't always operate at the most mature level, but
no.
Mike, you probably get a bigger pass. What, 22?
Yeah, 22.
33 here. I don't know if I get
22
the pass.
plus 11. So you're 1.5 years older than me. Wait, no.
Okay.
Times 1.5 times my age. There we go. That's right. Yeah, 1.5 times my age.
Go.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe we should stick to football.
Sorry. Okay, I'm not a math major. I'm a communication major, so that helps.
Even Will had to kind of shrug his shoulders. Like,
Will's like, no, Mike,
let's
just stop here, Mike. You're getting on a tangent.
So I've got a 1-game lead, Mike, and we've got one different pick this week.
Yes, sir.
I got West Florida. You got West Georgia.
I do. I'm picking, and I don't even know if I gave a score, but I could see that game being really close. West Georgia pull it off at the end, 24-17.
I don't think I gave a score on any of them, but that's all right.
That's okay. I don't think we're going by scores.
We're just going with the check mark. Always a pleasure, Mikey. We got some our final week of the Gulf South Conference football season, and I'm honestly, I've looked forward to a lot of weeks this year. This may sound the wrong way, but I'm almost looking forward for this week to pass and get to the playoffs.
Yes,
I'm ready for the playoffs.
And, I got to ask you before we close the show, Matt, next week, I guess when the playoffs come out, the brackets, that's probably what we're going to break down and focus on next week. Am I right on that? I mean, that's probably how
we're
going to
spend most of our time in the Super Region, too.
Yes,
but we'll take a
South
look
Conference teams and Super Region 2. But we'll break down all of it.
We'll kind of look at some of the other stuff. So we kind of went short this week. I'm looking at our time here, and we're about 38 minutes, so we'll probably go a little further next week. But, buddy, always a pleasure to see you, my man.
Matt, appreciate it.
Will, thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you to the Gulf South Conference for posting our podcast on your website, giving us access to talk about these great teams. Thank you to the listeners for tuning in and viewing us every week as well. And we'll see you next week. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Gulf South Conference Football Weekly Podcast. Tune in next week for more GSC recaps, analysis, and predictions from your hosts, Matt Selesky and Mike Ezekiel.